this weird glare from my window.
Yes, I'll come back to you, then I'll ask what have we done under the sun.
Hello and welcome back. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sophie, and today I'm going to be doing another book review on the book Fairest. So it is a novella from the series The Lunar Chronicles. If you've read The Lunar Chronicles, you know that the main villain is Levana, the queen of Luna, and this is her story. So Levana is a pretty sick, dark, twisted witch, I guess you could say. She isn't one for kindness, and she basically has intentions to kill her family members, which is dark, but true. For example, she tried to kill Cinder, who is in the first book of the Lunar Chronicles series, because she wanted to stay queen. And she also tried to kill her stepdaughter, Winter, in the fourth book of the series because she was jealous of her beauty. So Fairest is an interesting story because you really get to see a little bit more of who Levana was before she became queen and who she was when she was queen for a time, and how she became mother to Winter, her stepdaughter, and a bit of who she was as a person before she sort of went dark. So if you've read Fairest before, you know that the beginning starts out with Levana having a dream of when she was younger and how she got burnt. So as a child, her older sister Channery, who was Cinder's mother, used her glamour on Levana, her younger sister, and that is what caused Levana to have a burn mark, which caused Levana to always use glamour to cover it up. Levana's sort of always had a hard life, always being compared to her older sister, and always needing to meet the expectations of being a perfect little sister, being a perfect princess, and she never really felt like she fit in. But again, there was really no excuse for the terrible things she'd done to her stepdaughter and to her people and to Cinder as well. There's this weird glare from my window. But anyway, so you can sort of understand why Levana did all of these things, but then again, she had no right to do those. So the book sort of starts with Channery and Levana getting ready for their parents' funeral. Their parents were murdered by a shell, who is a lunar who doesn't have any glamour. They can't see through glamour, but they can resist the temptation of glamour, and glamour doesn't affect them as much. But they also can't use glamour. So the only person who knows how Levana really looks are obviously Levana and Channery. So when Channery and Levana were younger, Channery had manipulated Levana into getting too close to the fireplace and getting part of her arm, and I think the left side of her face burnt. So obviously the left side of her face is a little misshapen, and her arm is a little bloated, I guess, and blistered, as they describe it. So she always uses glamour to cover it up. She usually will shift from certain glamours, and she'll change how she looks, depending on a certain day. So the first glamour is described as olive skin, a graceful slope to her nose, and raven black hair cut adorably short. She shifted through a few eye colors before landing on a striking gray-blue, topped off with the smoldering black lashes. Before she could second-guess herself, she embedded a silver jewel into the flesh beneath her right eye, a teardrop, to prove that she was mourning. That's the glamour that Levana used for the funeral. Later, she actually uses the glamour of Solstice, who is one of the guards that she has a crush on, his wife. And then she ends up taking that glamour and making it in what she thinks is a better version of Solstice. And that's the glamour that she uses throughout the entire series. So the book goes through Levana's life and what it was when her sister was queen and what it was when she became queen. So obviously Channery has a daughter, and it's Celine, which is Cinder. So it goes to the time when her sister was queen to when her sister died from a disease, from getting this sort of like coal in her lungs, and she died from that. So Levana became queen for the time being because her niece, Celine, wasn't old enough to become queen yet. She had to be 13, and she was only about 2 or 3. So one day, Winter and Celine are playing together, and Levana comes to pick up Winter for a doctor's appointment, and Celine stays behind with a nanny. Levana ends up giving a candle to the nanny, and the candle falls over while the nanny and Celine are spending time together, and they die. Obviously, if you read the series, you know that Celine is Cinder and that she doesn't actually die, and that she did get some of her flesh burnt and needed to get cyborg implants. So everyone thinks that Celine is dead, and everyone knows that the nanny is dead. So therefore, Levana is now full-time queen, and she has to have an heir to the throne because she is the only one who is part of the royal bloodline. Levana is hoping to have children with Everett, but it's not really working. So eventually, towards the end, she does ask someone to kill Everett, and her husband dies. And she is looking for someone else to marry, and she's planning to marry the Emperor of New Beijing on Earth, but then obviously she ends up going after the prince, as we know in the series, because Emperor Rikan died. The book ends sadly with Levana promising to take good care of Winter. So I would recommend this book to people who've read the Lunar Chronicles series, obviously, because it does give you a lot of background on who Levana really is. And even if you like the Lunar Chronicles series, I wouldn't say this is for everyone. It does have a pretty big romance aspect in it, and it is a little violent sometimes, and is kind of dark. So of course it's not for everyone. I really like this book because of the romance aspect, and it showed you a little bit more of who Levana really was. So Lunar Chronicles is a fantasy / sci-fi series, and I definitely see that in this book, because this is a little bit more of a fantasy, but of course there's the sci-fi aspect because they live on the moon. But it's definitely a little bit more fantasy than sci-fi. I really like fantasy, so if you really like fantasy and you really like the Lunar Chronicles series, I would definitely recommend this. But of course, again, it's not for everyone. but I thought it was really well done, and I really liked the story that it told. And I definitely think that if you really like the Lunar Chronicles series, you would really like Fairest. Thanks so much for watching. I would really like if you could give this video a big thumbs up, and I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.